Hello, and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nanette Nocon, and thank you for joining us. We're here to talk with a sommelier, a big word for me, but really exciting stuff. His name is William Letke, and he's a sommelier, and just recently got his designation as sommelier here in the community. Welcome to our show, William.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, what is a sommelier?
Sommelier is a person who's familiar with wines and pairing wines with food in modern day. In the old world, the French royalty, a sommelier literally meant beast of burden. And the sommelier was charged with literally moving the baggage from one place to another as the royalties would travel from one castle to another. The sommelier moved the baggages physically until King Louis XIII. And then all of a sudden he said, well, not only my baggage, I want you to bring my china, I want you to bring my silver and my wines. And that's when the title changed, and they were totally in charge of everything, setting the table, the linens, which was sommelier is responsible for now. And that's what the sommelier did. So they didn't move things anymore. They orchestrated things and paired the wines with the foods.
I see. So it's just so it brought in a different meaning from King Louis the 14th.
Yes. 14th. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's great. No, there aren't that many sommeliers in our community.
I believe there's 5 now.
5. Okay. Now, what do you have to go through to earn that designation?
I took a course in New York City, and I flew back and forth for 20 weeks. And it covered every day you would cover anywhere from 9 to 12 wines, and you would taste them from every part of the world, literally every part of the world. It also covered service on how to open a wine, how to present it, how to decant it, and the characteristics of each varietal from different parts of the world, and it was literally all over the world. And it was a very involved 20-week course.
I see. And you went out of town for this? You went to?
Yes, I went to New York City.
I see. Are there many places that one can go through to be a sommelier?
There's no place local. You can go on a website, and they'll give you a place. There's 3 different levels. There's introductory. I'm certified. The next degree that I'm searching for is advanced, and then after that is Master of Wine.
I see.
And there's only 177 in the world, I believe, unless it's a couple more, but it's in the world. It's a very elite group.
I see.
And it's very involved to get from where I am now to the next level.
Is that the kind of level where you smell a little bit of wine and know exactly what it's about?
Yes. Well, I had to do that in this. I had 3 wines that I had to blind taste. You had to smell it, taste it, and tell where it was from and what it was.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the kind of training that was involved in the 20 weeks.
I see. So it's really beyond the Coke and Pepsi taste test.
Yes. Yes, it is. Just a little.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's really pretty good. Did you enjoy the process of
I did.
that?
I enjoyed it very much. That's why I'm looking forward to, probably in August, I think I'm going to try to take the advanced.
Oh, terrific.
Started anyway.
Yeah, well, congratulations. That's
Thank
a
you.
very difficult program to go through, and that's quite an achievement to passed it and gotten it.
Thank you.
Now, so let's say I'm doing some entertaining. We know each other well enough that you know I'm not very good at having wines, only because my system hasn't tolerated or I haven't gotten used to it. But let's say I'm having a dinner party and I want to buy wine. I mean, is there like certain matches? I mean, I've heard in the past, like, white wine with white type of meat. Is that a correct way to think about wine? I mean, I know it's very sophisticated, but is there like a general rule?
The white with white and the red with red really doesn't hold water anymore. Wine is a personal taste, actually. And if you're having a dinner party, I would assume you'd know something about your guests, so you would know whether they liked white or red, and depending on what you were serving. And the rule of thumb is, if you're having some sort of food that's either light, medium, or heavy, you would choose your wine accordingly.
Oh.
And it doesn't matter whether it's white or red. I switch back and forth like a very good pairing with chicken. You would think chicken's white, so chicken would have to be something white like Chardonnay. A very good one with that is Beaujolais, which is a red grape from France. But it's a very light, easy drinking wine, and it blends well with the chicken and adds to the flavors. So you choose from what you have. Light wines with light sauces. You have to watch your sauces. And then you choose your wines accordingly.
I see. Okay, so it's
nowadays.
I see. Okay, so that's the better way. And it's nice that I think that's freer as opposed to just pairing the white with white and red
Yes.
with red. And so the sauce and the type of taste that the guests have.
Yes.
Now, what about buying wine? It's a money show, so I got to talk about the money part of it. Go to a liquor store and a wine store, and you have quite a range. So. From half the price to, can get a $4 bottle to a $20 bottle. I mean, does the price have any bearing on the quality and the taste of the wine?
Up to a certain extent. But what you're looking for is you're looking for a $5 bottle of wine that's going to drink like a $20 bottle. And they are out there, believe it or not. There's new areas in the world that are coming in with little known vineyards. So their products are a little less expensive than the well-knowns like the Mondavis or Opus Ones of the world, and theirs are usually the $20 bottles for $5. So you can get them, but that's what you're looking for.
I said, well, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way, that the bigger the wine name, the pricier they can be because you're looking for
It's
that
reputation.
brand.
It's like clothes.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's true.
Versace as opposed to JCPenney's.
I see. You could just tell that I know not very much about wines, but that's interesting because then you can be creative in terms of the
Yes.
kind of wines, and if it's not so expensive, you could try a couple of them and see if the
Right.
taste suits you or
Right.
might be something that might be appealing to you.
But it's usually if you're having a dinner party, you would always have one of each
Okay.
because then you offer a selection.
I see. No, talk to me about the categories of wine. In my mind, there's red and white, but there's really a lot more subcategories within that, or probably something in between as well.
Well, there's also sparklers or champagne if you wanted to start from there. And then the basic groups would be Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, and the reds would be Cabernet, Merlot, Pinot Noir, which is very, very popular these days, Syrah, Zinfandel.
Okay.
But those are basically some categories. And there's a lot of other hybrids, they're called. They're blends of wines together, and those are different categories.
I see. Do people ever mix the wines that they drink, or that's too dangerous? When you have blends, I mean, it's kind
Mix.
of an odd question. Do you pour in the same glass different kinds of wine? Like,
You can. That's how. In America, if a bottle says Cabernet and it's from California, it has to be 75% of that grape in order to be called that. The other 25% can be anything that the winemaker wants to make it. So it's basically pouring different wines into a glass
I see.
and then aging it and then selling it to you and calling it whatever. And that's their special stamp
I see.
on a bottle.
I see.
And that's what changes the price of things too.
Okay.
Is how it's blended and how long it's aged and what it's aged in.
And the nature of the wine change over time? Like after I buy it as a bottle, if a wine, let's say, I mean, I've never done this, but let's say I bought one that was from 1970 and I haven't opened the bottle, then does the nature of that wine change? That it may not be might taste differently if I just open it now?
It would depend on where it was from and what kind it was. Some of the wines that are put out in the markets are meant to be drunk today. Other wines are meant to be stored 8, 10, 20, 30 years, like the French Bordeaux, for instance. When they come out, they're aged for 2 years before they're released. And then when you get them, you should really put them up for 8 to 20 years. It depends on what that vintage was rated as. And the only way they can rate it is they keep tasting the bottles and testing them and saying, well, there's a lot of structure and backbone to this. Let's try it again in another year. And every year it changes, it evolves into something else.
I see.
And it brings out more. Today you may taste cherries. Tomorrow you may taste chocolate,
I see.
or chocolate-covered cherries together. It just depends on how it's going to evolve and the amount of time that would last. They're drinking wines, Bordeaux from, I just served one the other day, 1975, and it was excellent. It really was. It was fresh, just like it was bottled yesterday, and that's a pretty common thing on Bordeaux. Bordeaux are very long-lived. So are a lot of the good Cabernets from California.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
California is right up there as far as good wines.
Very nice. It's great to hear. So, so then one would have to make quite a substantial investment in the kinds of wines that you're talking about. That, like when you generally buy those that you would hold for a long time, are they typically pricey or just all over the place?
Yes, they can be and they can't be. There's things called future buying, and what you do is you speculate. The wines aren't bottled yet; they're just in barrels, and they'll say, well, okay, we will sell you this for this price. Then it's bottled 2 years later. It comes in, and you've already settled on this is what you're going to buy it for. So when it's released, you get yours. Say you paid $100 for it, and all of a sudden it's rated, comes on the market, and it's an auction bid type affair.
Okay.
So the price goes up to $120. So you've saved $20 on that bottle. So that's what future buying is. Basically, it's a lot more involved than that, but that's simply put. So you could do that, and it could cost you some money, but otherwise you could go to a liquor store and say buy a Lafite Rothschild on 1990 for maybe it's going for $150, $250. So you could put that up for 5 to 10 years, whatever you preferred to do, or give it as a gift. Like if a lot of people do that when they have children, upon their birth, they buy a good bottle of wine from that year, put it up, and they drink it on their 21st birthday. And which is great. That particular bottle could sell for $1,000.
A little price.
And
maybe you don't want to open it.
you may not want to, but that's that. You can start a wine collection for less than that. You can go anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000, depending on the space you have and how extensive you wanted to do it. I mean, usually you start with like a sparkling wine, which is anything not from Champagne, and those are usually cheaper, maybe $5 to $20. And a Champagne from the Champagne region of France you could get those starting at 18, and they go all the way up to Dame, which is 150.
Okay. Dame
Perignon.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's quite a wide range, but you could select some good ones at the lower end.
Right. You could put one in and then save, depending. I mean, if you're doing it for, you're going to have company or special occasions, you buy it, put it up for now, and then serve it later. But just have that in your collection.
Okay, so then we're building a collection. We start with the basic of the sparkling wine. And now let's start, like I'm physically thinking about building this collection. Is it necessary to have a wine cellar to put this? I mean, what does a new collector have to think about?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a wine cellar. It could be a closet or a space in your basement, as long as the temperature is controlled.
I see.
It can have a fluctuation of temperatures. It should be anywhere from 53 to probably 58, 60, somewhere around there, and it should be fairly constant. What you're trying to do is, in the olden days, what they did was they dug a hole in the ground, 8 feet, and put their barrels there because it was cooler.
Sure.
And then they covered it up and left it. So what you want is darkness, and you want some place where there's no vibration, so you don't want it next to your washer and dryer. Or your furnace, or whatever makes a lot of noise. Right. Dishwasher. A lot of people are having their wine cabinets built right into their counters. So I mean, that just occurred to me the other day, and I'm saying, well, I've seen them, but I've never really paid attention. Well, where's the dishwasher? But that's a good point, because you don't want to agitate it. You want it to just lay and sleep, and then mellow out and grow.
And then the way to store is flat instead of
on its side, so the cork is moist, because if the cork is moist, it'll seal out air. If it allows to dry out, it will allow for crevices, and air could seep in and oxidize and spoil your wine, or taint it.
I see.
Could get cork mold, taste like cork.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. So the first thing is make sure that there's consistency in the temperature.
Yes.
And that's
very important.
And then that it's
out of direct light.
Out of direct light.
Out of direct light. It doesn't have to be darkness, but out of direct light.
And no agitation.
No.
I see.
Right.
Okay, that's great. Well, let's take a quick break. We're talking to William Letke, who's a sommelier, a beverage manager, and I'm Nanette Nokan, and I'm glad you're here.
Take 3. Here's a great way to recycle your wine corks into something useful. Okay, you're gonna need about 50 of them and something called an adjustable pipe clamp, which you can find at any hardware store. Just arrange the corks on the inside, tighten with a screwdriver, and you've got yourself a brand new cork trivet. Now here's something else you can recycle. Your old cell phone. It's easy and it helps protect the environment.
Take your old cell phones and rechargeable batteries to one of these retailers and see us online for other fun recycling projects. Answer the call to recycle.
Rechargeable batteries let us go anywhere and do anything. But the freedom to go unplugged comes with responsibility. Look at that.
Wow.
The responsibility to recycle. If you've got old rechargeable batteries hanging around, take them in to be recycled. It's easy, and it's good for the environment. Check us out online or give us a call at 1-800-8-BATTERY to learn more.
And welcome back. I'm Nanette Nauken. We're here with William Letke, and we're talking about wines and creating a selection of wines, collection of wines. William is a sommelier and a beverage manager. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we're starting our collection with sparkling wines. And actually, are there sparkling reds? Or is only
Yes, there are.
wine? Okay. all right.
Surprisingly enough, Australia has come out with their favorite, the famous for Shiraz, which is a very berry flavored wine, and one of them is called Black Bubbles, and it's a Shiraz sparkling wine.
Oh, interesting.
And it's excellent. It's great with it's a great icebreaker too. When you're meeting people for the first time, and it's something different and exciting. There's also some wines from Italy that are rose colored. Well, there's rosé, which is made out of champagne is made out of 3 grapes, and one of them, they're not all white. One of them is Pinot Noir, which is a red grape.
Okay.
They just don't allow the skins to come in contact with the pulp or the juice, because that's where the tannins are, a lot of the tannins, and the color comes from the skin. So they just use the insides, and then if they wanted a rosé, they let the skins lay on the pulp for a while, and so some of the color is departed, so it comes out, it's sort of a light pink,
I see.
and it's a rosé,
Oh, interesting.
and
I
it
didn't
changes
know
the
that.
flavor also.
Oh, okay. All right, that's neat. All right, so we've got the sparkling wines. It could be white or red. And then we build the collection further, and let's see, let's put in some white wines. What would suggestions you would include in there?
Well, they're really considered like the body of a wine,
Okay.
between a light, medium, and heavy.
Okay.
And what that means was, the easy way to remember that would be like milk, for instance. Light would be a skim milk, medium would be a whole milk, and a heavy body feel in your mouth would be heavy cream. As it goes to covering a glass,
Okay.
when you tilt it, like skim milk just barely tilts, and then the heavy cream just totally covers it. So if you're looking for whether it's reds or whites, I would get one from each one of the groups, because not knowing how you're going to use it in entertaining, like if you have a light white wine, you could have it with fish, or you could have it with a salad, depending on what the salad dressings are, because you don't want it to fight with the wine. You want it to blend. Then you have a medium. So if you have medium body, if you have a food with a heavier sauce, with maybe stronger in onions or something, you'd want a more medium body. In a stronger body, white especially, you could, if it's really, really heavy, like something from California that's aged in oak for several years, you could have that with steak, because it would blend very, very well. So it would be the light, medium, and heavy, and I would get something from each group.
Okay.
And you would look at, light would be, in America, you could probably do Chenin Blanc is on the light side. There's American Pinot Grigios, which are also on the light side. A medium would be a Chardonnay done in stainless steel, as opposed to wood, because stainless steel allows all the fruit to just stay where it is. And then it's fruit forward, very fresh. When it's taken from there and put into a barrel, it takes on the characteristics of a barrel. So it tastes smoky, it tastes woody. There's certain spices that come out of different woods. It goes into, that's what took 20 weeks. And there's certain spices that come out of different wood, whether it's French, Australian, American oak. It's different flavors. So the heaviest would be something that was done in an oak.
And it's longer time period
Yes.
than something that's stainless steel when
Yes.
it's being, okay.
Yes.
Well, that's
So that would
interesting.
be light, medium, and heavy. And
Now-
the reds are basically somewhat the same.
Okay, I see. So it's just good to have both parallel red and white, but then
Yes.
just go in the light, the medium, and the heavy, depending on what kind of foods you're serving.
Right, because if you're starting with, say, a light soup course, or hors d'oeuvres. You could start with a sparkling or a champagne with your hors d'oeuvres and move on into your salad, serve the same, or move to a lighter white. And then when you go to your regular meal, say it is steak, for instance, and you have people that, well, I prefer white. Well, fine, you would serve a heavier Chardonnay as opposed to a Cabernet,
I
which
see.
is also done in oak, which would be the same process, all except with red grapes,
I
red
see.
wines.
So in a dinner party that you're having, you could really have a different type of wine
For
you're
each
saying.
course.
For each course. you're serving.
That's one thing that a sommelier is trained in,
I see.
is to pair wines with different foods, and I do that quite frequently. We have like 8-course dinners, and you start with the hors d'oeuvres and end with a dessert, or a cheese course. That's the way it's done in Italy. The salad is, or I mean Europe, the salads are served last instead of first.
I see. So you have a lighter wine with the salad at the
Yes.
end. I see, rather than the heavier,
Yes.
different types of techniques.
Right, and
there.
cheeses.
I see.
In Europe, they usually do salads and cheeses as a final course, and you would serve something like a Pinot Noir, which is very fruit forward, but it doesn't have the doesn't dry your mouth out. Those are tannins, so it's not a heavy. It's a light to medium mouth feel.
I see. And then it has to do with the preference too, because one might
Yes.
want something different tasting, but then those are
Right,
kind of
because
the
each grape
basic.
has its own characteristics. It does change with the soil, but each grape has certain things that will come out. So if a Pinot Noir, for instance, is red berries, where a Cabernet is more on the blackberries, like blackberries, elderberries, plums, tobacco, and those flavors come out of a Cabernet. So it depends on what your personal preference.
I see, I see. Now, when building the collection as such, would you recommend that people buy a couple bottles of wine or just one from each kind? I guess it depends on how often you use it and
Yes,
how much you need.
and your personal preference. Because, if you start out with one bottle, because if you only pay $5 for it, that's fine. You buy 5 and you pay $25 and you find that you don't like it.
Yeah, what a waste.
You got a lot of salad dressing there.
That's right.
So it would depend on, yes, cooking wine, yes.
Right. Now, how do you find out about new wines? You just kind of like go to the store, or do you read about it? Or how do you expand your horizon in knowing about what's out there?
I do both. There's different publications that are out there that everybody can get at bookstores. They also rate the wines, and there's different categories. Like the Wine Spectator is one, Robert Parker is another. Wine Spectator has a board of 15 people who taste the wine and come up with a score from 80 to 100, 100 being perfect. Robert Parker is himself, and this man is very, very well trained, and he does hundreds of wines and rates them himself and is very, very good. So you can go from a panel. I use both in my line of work, because a lot of people are wine enthusiast or Wine Spectator rating wise, or the other ones are Robert Parker, which is Wine Advocate is the name of his publication he puts out. There's also food and wine magazines.
True.
There's trade magazines that I get. There are liquor stores that you go to that sponsor wine tastings, to where you go and say, well, this is a new wine from Chile, it's whatever the characteristics are, and they let you sample it, and if you like it, you buy it.
Sure.
And that's basically what I do.
That's a good
And
way
I go to
find out.
I buy the wines for where I'm employed, so I get to taste. I go to shows, and I just came from 2 this week, and one had 350 wines.
Oh my.
And so I knew what I was looking for, so I probably only tasted 300.
No, right.
But I do taste a lot, and that's how you learn.
So some of you actually can distinctly, like we mentioned earlier, taste from one to the other. Like for me, after a couple of them, it's just hard to distinguish, But I guess you have a lot of experience and kind of knowledge behind it, and your taste buds get discriminating from one to the next.
Well, that was the part with the 20 weeks. I mean, my class started at 9 o'clock in the morning. And when you walked in at 9 o'clock in the morning and saw 9 to 12 glasses of wine sitting in front of you, it wasn't the most exciting thing to do.
9 a.m.,
But by
yeah.
the time the day went on and you would taste it, and you'd stop and you would have something to clear your palate, or you can clear your nose. You just take, like, coffee grounds or coffee beans is a typical thing, because you're taking it, totally changes your smells, and you put it back and you can smell the things you were smelling before. It does get tiring after a while. I mean, if you're doing it like the 350 wines, for instance. I mean, I stopped in between, and they serve things that are supposed to be good for your palate. I mean, there's cheeses and there's bland crackers in order just to cleanse your palate.
I see. So
and then go back and
start
try.
from a clean slate, kind of
Right.
cleansing your palate, and that's why they serve
Right.
the little, I'm forgetting the name
Appetizers
of it.
or, yeah.
Yeah.
Hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
Hors d'oeuvres is, I guess.
I see. Just start over, so then you're not having a
Right.
baseline and keep building on that.
Right.
You start all over as if you're having it for the
I've
first
never
time.
had coffee beans offered me there, but I had when I was in New York.
I
Because
see.
as part of my training, I went a day earlier and I would go to one of the famous restaurants there to find out what a sommelier does. I mean, that was the whole point. And I would have them wait on me and serve me. And then when they found out what I was doing, they said, well, here. And they would come out with, they were very proud of what they do, come out with a variety of maybe 3 or 4 wines, a flight they called it. And then in between they said, well, here. And they would give me the coffee beans to smell. And I thought, oh, wow, this is great. And it is. It's a great idea. I have nobody do it here in Rochester. I might once in a while, but...
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. That's great. So then in building this collection, you just kind of replenish it with other favorites that you might have if you've used up the wine. And
or the populars that are popular now. I mean, Pinot Noir is very popular since the movie Sideways.
Yes, yeah, right, that's right.
You can barely buy it anymore. So what you would naturally stock several bottles of that if you plan on entertaining, because that is going to be popular. It's one of the wines that are popular. The one before that was Merlot. So those two are good bets. And if you have people that are that really are into wines, you would stock Cabernet because it's sort of they're light, medium, heavy.
I see. Okay.
So and then you'll find out what you like the best, and then you could stock those, and then you could always sell it to whoever you're with. Because that's all, anybody who likes wine loves to hear about wine, and they love to try different things. So if you're saying, well, this is what I'm offering, and saying, well, geez, I really don't like Pinot Noir, you've got to try this one. This one's different. And then wine is a very good icebreaker. It's been social for centuries.
Sure.
Since the Romans.
So when I'm talking about those wines, I just want to so the Pinot Noir is the lighter, and then Merlot is medium, and Cabernet is heavier.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
I'm learning. Wow,
Yes.
That's great. And it's been so then when I've got my collection and have that and serve it, and then kind of read up on different offerings that's out there and kind of enhance the collection that way, but then also keep some of the things that you may have bought for a special occasion for later, and kind of have something valuable in that way, but then also kind of replenish your collection as you would consume it.
Right.
Most people I talk to and telling them about the show that we're doing say, well, gee, my collection, kind of the extent of that is, you buy the bottle and then it comes out and we drink it.
Yeah.
The collection is the consumption, but then it's
Well-
nice to have some sort of backup bottles to serve when you're entertaining. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I certainly learned a lot, and hopefully go out there and get my wines and
Well, I'll help you.
experiment with
Just
them.
let me know. I'll go with you anytime.
I appreciate that very much. And thank you, our audience, for joining us today. Our guest again is William Letke, Beverage Manager and Sommelier, one of the very few in our community. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, I'm Nanette Nocon.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please email Nanette at nnocon@aol.com. Following production was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.